I got to get in here, Mr. Tory. Forgive me. I got to keep us on time. Mr. Tory, this question is for you, and the topic is energy. Okay. Both you and the Liberals say we need to invest billions of dollars in new nuclear plants. Those opposed say we have not yet begun to scratch the surface on other options, such as conservation, which they say could make the need for these plants unnecessary. So the question is, do we really need these new nuclear facilities in Ontario?
Yes, I think we do. And I think it's because, in part, Mr. McGuinty has wasted a lot of time over the course of the last 4 years. Again, he made a solemn promise to close down the coal plants, which I think he knew it could never be kept. And in the meantime, there had been terrible damage done to the health of people across the province. But just as importantly, or not just as importantly, but certainly an important consideration at the same time, is the fact that that whole period of time while he pretended he was going to close them was not spent reviewing other options and moving ahead. And one of those is more nuclear power. Yes, I'm committed to renewable energy, to more solar, to more wind, to more conservation. We should do everything we can, but we need the baseload power to be absolutely sure that we can have energy in place to supply our industries and make sure the jobs are protected, and that we have to do that in a way that I think is reliable, greenhouse gas emission free, and that means nuclear.
Thank you, Mr. Tory. Mr. McGuinty, your chance.
You know, the electricity sector was in pretty sad shape when we earned the privilege of serving Ontarians as their government, and we just scraped by, in fact, our very first summer. But we quickly got to work, rolled up our sleeves. We brought 3,000 megawatts of new generation online. There's 10,000 more megawatts in the pipeline. And yes, an important dimension of a healthy mix of electricity supply, because the government is responsible for ensuring a reliability of supply, is going to include nuclear. But we also have the fastest growing renewable sector, and I think this is very exciting, in all of North America. When I got this job, there were 10 wind turbines. Now there are 700 built or underway. Just outside of Sarnia, we're building the largest solar farm in North America. So yes, nuclear is an important part of the mix, but we're going to pursue conservation and renewables at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. McGuinty. Mr. Hampton, your answer.
Well, Mr. McGuinty and Mr. Tory are both wrong on this. Mr. McGuinty's energy policy, when you look at it, is about going nuclear and going big, and Mr. Tory's policy is about going nuclear and going bigger. And let me tell you, Ontario's had a sad history with nuclear power. Darlington Nuclear Station was supposed to cost about $4 billion. It ended up costing almost $15 billion, an $11 billion cost overrun. And you pay for that on your hydro bill in terms of the debt retirement charge. Here's what we need to do. We need to make energy efficiency the center point of our electricity program. We need to provide people with low-interest loans so they can retrofit their homes, purchase energy-efficient appliances, and reduce their energy consumption, and do the same with institutions like schools and hospitals and industry. That's the way forward.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Open debate, gentlemen, starting with Mr. Tory. 3.5 minutes.
Well, I just really think we should come back to the fact that you spent 4 years during which you really didn't address these issues because you were so busy not wanting to explain why you weren't going to keep your word on closing the coal plants. You said you were going to close those coal plants, and I quote, "Come hell or high water." That's what you said, come hell or high water. And they're not closed. They're not going to be closed. You didn't put scrubbers on them to clean up the health. And in the meantime, well, actually, the only one you've closed was started by the former PC government, and you know that.
So
but having said that,
look,
what you've done is you won't sort of fess up here and say, look, we really have to make a commitment. You're kind of maybe a bit for nuclear energy on Monday, and maybe on Wednesday, maybe not so much for it anymore. We've got to move ahead. Jobs and investment depend on this. You kind of half into it. You haven't really committed yourself to moving ahead quickly with it, which I will do, because we've got to do it. We've got to get on with it, because we're going to run out of energy otherwise, and that will cost us jobs, and it will be a terrible thing for the Ontario
equal time economy. For Mr. McGuinty, please.
You're making this up. We've been very committed to nuclear from the outset. We've sat down and worked with all the parties involved. You will know it's a very complex matter to consider the construction of new nuclear generation in Ontario. We're going to go ahead with that. We think it's essential. I just can't agree with Mr. Hampton's proposal that we eliminate 1/2 of our electricity today in the province of Ontario comes from nuclear generation. I agree with you. We've got to pursue conservation aggressively. We've got to pursue renewables. We've got to make sure that people buy energy-efficient appliances.
Conservation
but you know
or
what?
energy efficiency.
I think we have to be reasonable and realistic.
You're not pursuing those things.
We don't have a magnificent geography in the way that Quebec or Manitoba does, or Newfoundland for that matter, when it comes to hydroelectric capacity. We're going to have to have nuclear for the foreseeable future.
Here is the reality, and I want people to know this. California has reduced their electricity consumption by 12,000 megawatts over what it otherwise would have been. 12,000 megawatts represents 3 Darlington nuclear plants. So 3 times $15 billion. Manitoba, a small province, has reduced their electricity consumption by 500 megawatts. Through energy efficiency, people can get a loan so they can retrofit their home. They can put in high-efficiency natural gas heating. They can put in solar hot water heaters. They can purchase energy-efficient appliances. We can reduce our electricity consumption in this province substantially. But we've wasted 4 years under the McGuinty government.
And I think people should know, Steve, that one of the first things they did when they came to office was to cancel the program that was there for energy-efficient appliances. And guess when they brought it back? A few weeks before the election. This is the way, unfortunately, Mr. McGuinty has operated. It's not the way a strong leader operates. You've got to have a plan. You've got to be really committed to conservation. I will say this, they put an ad campaign on too. That's good. They had an ad campaign, but that's it. An ad campaign and cancellation of projects, and then at the last minute, when we're about to have the election, suddenly you see the light. And you bring forward conservation programs.
Last 20
this
seconds.
Is not leadership.
There are a number of great programs in place. Maybe I'll just take this opportunity to remind Ontarians that they can go out there and they can buy energy-efficient appliances today and save the sales tax. They can get up to a $5,000 rebate when it comes to energy retrofits. We're the first province in Canada to ban energy-inefficient light bulbs. And we're putting smart meters in our homes so that we know when you're using electricity. If you're using it during the non-rush hour period, then we can charge you less for it.
Smart meters will simply drive up the hydro bill.
Gentlemen, I'm getting in here because time's up. Excuse me, time's up on this segment.